Welcome to Alberta Municipal Votes 2025 here on Municipal Affairs. Now, in municipal politics, the boundary between public responsibility and private life is not always clear. At times, the line is carefully guarded. At others, political leaders choose to be candid, inviting the public to see the person behind the office. Now, today we are joined by Jeromy Farkas, a candidate for Mayor of Calgary in this upcoming municipal election set for October 20th, 2025. Now, while on this program, we traditionally examine policies and governance, our focus this evening will turn towards the personal, Mr. Farkas's role in community and his private life. Now, this is a conversation that touches on representation, leadership, and the evolving relationship between a candidate's public vision and their personal identity. Jeromy, thank you so much for sitting down with me again. In 2025, it's rare for politicians to want to be open about their private life because it is such a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job, but it is the reality of that we live in right now. People want to know who they're voting for, the private life of someone who they're going to be putting their trust in for the next 4 years. Now, you've been relatively open about your private life in your time in office, in your campaigns. But today we're going to talk about your private life a little bit more in depth, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and thanks so much for having me again. And where my mind immediately goes with that is, it's sort of always been that way, right? When you think of elections, we're on a municipal level, we're in a 4-year cycle. You're going to hear from a lot of candidates talking about platform, specific promises, but, the vast majority of stuff that our local leaders work through, challenges and opportunities are outside of that platform. So I see it a bit differently. It's not so much about, say, private life. It's more about values, family, its identity. What are your North Star, for example, right? So I think from a voter's perspective, there's a lot of questions that they ask of candidates, and they're completely outside of politics or policy or platform. It's more about, why are you in this race? What's your motivation? How do you see yourself in the world? How do you see your own identity? How do you take part in community? All of those things, I think, are still relevant to voters, which is why I'm just so grateful to be able to be here and have that kind of conversation.
So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is... Actually, I'll let you describe it because I don't want to be accused on this show because I feel like I'm going to get a few emails after this conversation. But why are you here today, and why are you here to open up about a part of you that you feel needs to be opened up about?
So on a couple levels, I'm happy to share that I am a queer Calgarian. I came out relatively young as bisexual. It wasn't the easiest of experiences that I had as a kid, but it was thanks to incredible friends, mentors, teachers, the support that I had in my life that, I had assumed that it was going to be something that was going to set me back compared to some of my peers. And I'll be honest, there were some really tough conversations about what that means, what that meant about myself personally, my identity, where I fit in the world or I didn't. To me, I don't think of it as a thing that I am. I think of it as an input to all of these other things that have influenced my own personal story, right? We like to think of identity in terms of either you're this or that, whereas it's much more complicated. Like we can be so many different things all at once, and that's really the bones of what we know as intersectionality, right? Your lived experience, your upbringing, family, faith, culture, all of that influences who we are. But I do think when you're entering into the political realm as well, it's important to be able to have those types of nuanced conversations. To your point, we kind of live in a kind of polarized world where people want to be able to put you in a box. And I think most Calgarians would say that it's not so easy to put us in a box. We're a complicated, amazing, beautiful, wonderful city because of that diversity. And I know that there's folks who would rather sort of shy away from these types of questions, but I know that if I'm going to demonstrate that I'm ready to be mayor, and I am ready to be mayor for Calgary to help build up that safe and affordable city so that all of us can thrive, I know that if I'm going to show that, it's by virtue of being willing and able and having the courage to have these types of conversations.
So why now? why have this conversation now? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but it is close to an election time, and you've had the last 4 years to have this conversation. Why is it important to tell the voters now who your authentic self is, but also that lived experience that you have will make you a better mayor?
So I'll say a few things there. It's not a sudden coming out, right? It's something that
you said you were. It's been a while coming.
Yeah, and to Calgarians' credit, when I was first running for city councilor in 2017, I represented and I was knocking on doors in some of the most conservative areas in the city. Southwest Calgary, represented formally by, say, Stephen Harper, Jason Kenney, Preston Manning. And this was part of my biography then, right? And to Calgarians' credit, even some quite conservative Calgarians' credit, none of that mattered. The questions I got at the doors was, well, who are you? Where'd you come from? How do you look at the world? But most of all, how are you going to help me make things better for my family, right? And it was funny, like even in the ultra local race that I was in 2017, there was one other candidate who tried to make an issue of it, but there was such tremendous backlash on that individual that they didn't even make it to nomination day. So I think that shows us that Calgarians are great. They're decent. They're willing to sort of the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves, that, Calgary's built on merit. It's what you can do for yourself, for your family, and for other people that really is the ultimate judge. But I think now, in terms of a moment in time, of course, we have Pride Festival coming up here in Calgary. You have a lot of politicians who kind of come for the photo op, and they're there for the photo, and they immediately bail. But for me, I think it's important to be authentic, to talk a little bit about how I view the world, and also how, as mayor, I'd want to incorporate some of the lessons from that throughout everything that I do, rather than just show up for a couple minutes once a year, right?
So what does it mean to you to be part of the 2S LGBTQ plus community in Calgary? Because you mentioned that Calgary Pride, the parade is coming up this weekend as the time this airs. What does it mean for yourself, who identifies as part of the queer community, to be at that parade, to be with fellow members of the 2S LGBTQ plus community?
Well, I think the question you're asking me is, what does it mean to be part of the community? But I think the better question that's to be asked is, what does it mean to be Calgarian? Because to be Calgarian is to be part of that community. It's to be part of so many other communities who have been able to come from elsewhere in the world as well, to be able to achieve success for themselves, their family, in Calgary as a city. What we're building here is amazing. It's where anybody and everybody is welcome to live a great Canadian life, where you're judged on what you can do for other people rather than necessarily where you came from or who you love. And that physical presence, I think, is very important. It's a show of support, but it's not about picking one community or another. Like I mentioned, I'm many things all at once, right? I'm Hungarian, of Hungarian descent. I'm of Ukrainian descent. There's a lot of various communities that I feel I belong to, but I belong to all of those communities, and it's really what I feel makes me Calgarian. And for me, that physical presence is important, but it's not just the physical presence. I think showing up is half the battle, but it's what do you learn from those tough conversations? How do you carry forward the lessons in public policy, in advocacy? And for me, it's a relatively minor thing, but I want to make sure that if there are kids out there today who think that maybe coming out is a barrier to their own personal success, or could be damaging to their private life, or could be harmful to their careers, I feel I have a personal obligation to be out and present and sharing that story, even if it's uncomfortable for me personally. If I can be a decent example for other people to say, well, there's no limits on who you can be, where you can go, what you can do, who you can love in the city, I feel like it's worthwhile.
Do you still have reservations about talking about it so openly?
Oh, it's tough, right? Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the presence of fear and pushing through anyway. I'm reminded, like, when my friends dropped me off at the border wall in Mexico, and they told me 7 months, we'll see you back in Calgary, right? Like
good friends. If you ask
they're,
me,
they're good
go,
friends.
Go have fun for 7 months. Don't call me.
I'm sorry, Sam and Austin. This makes it sound awful, but they did say if I ever needed to get bailed out, they would come and find me.
Well, there you go.
So
See,
there's that.
There's
But the whole point is, like, I knew there's an end state that I wanted to get to, and in that case, it was getting home to Calgary. But if I thought about the whole thing, like 5,000 kilometers, the entire journey, it would have just been really tough mentally. So all I had to work through is just the next steps, where I'm at tomorrow, where I'm at next week, and then, the days take care of themselves, and the weeks take care of themselves, and eventually the months took care of themselves. And I see it similarly in terms of the challenge of. I'm not going to gloss over this. I think the community is feeling under siege locally here in the city. I do know that there's that end state in mind where genuinely the story that we tell ourselves of Calgary lines up with the reality of all of us. But that's the key thing we need to acknowledge here is the story is not lining up with the reality for all of us right here and today. So for some of us, it looks like one step forward, one step back occasionally. And far too often these days. But I think that that end state of Calgary being a welcoming city where genuinely you're judged on what you can do for other people, genuinely you're accepted regardless of who you are, that's the end state that we're working toward. If we think about trying to get that done by tomorrow, it feels really tough, which is why we got to break it down into more actionable steps. And why I think leaders need to be able to show up for the community, share their stories, and there's folks who are probably going to listen to this interview and say, well, I'm disqualified by virtue of being part of this community or part of that other community. And that's criticism that I accept, but I think it's also criticism that would renew my resolve to say that, yes, I think it validates the fact that conversations like this are required if you're going to make a singular judgment about me based on that sole piece of information or piece of my identity.
Just a brief story about myself, and I want to put it in the context of yourself for a second. In 2017, when I ran for a municipal council up in Big Lakes County, openly gay man running in a very rural community, I was told over and over again, when people ask you about wife and kids, just say you don't have them. Don't talk about your boyfriend. Don't talk about your partner. Just keep yourself in the closet, in some sense, the proverbial closet. In your time in office, internally or even externally, did you ever have moments where you said, maybe I shouldn't be open about who I am? Or did anyone ever tell you, Jeromy, we love you, but just don't talk about this part of you, who you are, because you're going to go further in life rather than being that guy who is part of the queer community. You're just going to be Jeromy.
Well, it's tough because you do hear a lot of that. For me, I didn't want to be a token, right? I didn't want that one piece about me to define me, even as I don't even want my interest in politics to be the only thing that defines me, right?
Whoa. You're talking to the guy who's defined by municipal politics.
I saw your nerdy fantasy books on the shelf on the way into this.
Shh. You're letting out all the secrets here.
I love hiking. I love movies. I love video games. I like all the rest, but that's the core of it. And especially as a person who kind of wants just the city to focus on city issues, to be practical, to be pragmatic. I do get that type of advice, but I'm at a point in my life, my career, where I have the confidence to say, accept me as who I am. We're not going to agree on everything, but at least if we can agree on how to work the problem, if we can agree on the values, then the details kind of take care of themselves, and we'll have the ability to compromise along the way. But I do feel like it is important to be able to tackle head on these conversations and really show what you're for rather than just what you're against. So, it's about showing up for every community that exists here in Calgary, and especially as we're seeing a lot of the most recent tensions, frustrations around public policy. I want to be able to send a clear message that every single Calgarian is welcome here in the city, regardless of where you come from, who you love.
Is that hard? Is that a hard responsibility to put on your shoulders? Because if you are elected mayor, you're going to have to represent everyone equally. And there will be some people who just will not agree with you full force, full stop, because you're a member, you identify as queer. Well, is it hard to sort of wrap your head around that?
Well, my career has never been about doing the easy things, right? When I think about being one of the youngest city councilors ever elected, being a police commissioner, being even a nonprofit director and CEO, trying to keep the lights on, working with vulnerable youth, being a mentor, walking from Mexico home to Canada and to Calgary, climbing 25 peaks in 25 days. I don't take on the easy things. I take on the challenges that are worth tackling, right? So in public life, there's a certain level of scrutiny. I think you have to be willing to accept the questions and the criticisms. And what I've found is that just by virtue of actually having these conversations, there's a lot of, I don't think ignorance is the right word, because ignorance, I think, implies ill will. I think there's just a lack of knowledge around some of the stuff. And the vast majority of people I speak to that have questions about orientation, how I view the world, identity, they come from a place of goodwill. They're just trying to tease out, how do I view the world? How do I view problems? How do I view the city? And things around, say, family, things around faith, where you come from, how you see the city. Those are important questions for voters. So just by virtue of getting questions about it, I have found that my headspace is a lot better by assuming goodwill from the other person rather than assuming that this was going to be a negative. So a lot of people are just curious, and I'm very happy to have that conversation. And it is always tough because you never know where the conversation is going to go. More often than not, it goes into a very great place where we have an opportunity to engage and have a dialogue in terms of how we view family, how we view the world, right? How we view the support we get from our partners. But sometimes it does go in a negative direction, right? And you have to have the courage to be able to speak out and say, if this is a disqualifying issue for you, I'm going to accept that. I am not going to bend over backwards to try to quietly appeal to you, and I'm going to respectfully say, I'm going to seek support elsewhere. I'm going to seek support from the Calgarians who do want a practical council, who want somebody who cares, somebody who wants to focus on the issues, safety, affordability, rather than trying to use identity to wedge neighbors against neighbors.
I'm going to play a little devil's advocate with you.
Yeah,
for a
please.
second, because if you are elected on October 20th, okay, let's say you get elected on October 20th. When you are elected on October 20th, I'm doing a journey with you right now. When you are elected on October 20th, there will be some tough decisions that you will have to make, and you will have to look at it through the Calgarian lens. Mm-hmm. But some issues will have a LGBTQ plus community lens on it. And the one that I'm thinking about right now is around crosswalks. We saw in Westlock, Alberta last year, we saw in Barhead, where the residents said, we don't want the pride flag painted on crosswalks. If that vote ever came to council, and you heard from a majority of Albertans or Calgarians that they did not want pride flags painted on their crosswalks, which lens ultimately wins in that case? Would it be supporting the queer community of Calgary, or would it be the residents who you're hearing from?
Well, I look back to my own career and my voting record on council, right? I strongly supported Pride crosswalks. And here in Calgary, actually, it's not even publicly funded. It's just permits are issued by the city, and it's privately fundraised, which I think squares the issue for a lot of folks. I attended the raising of the Pride flag every year. And it's not just about picking the Pride flag. It's about allowing those raisings for all of these various communities that come to call Calgary home. Same thing for my advocacy and vote in support of the ban on conversion therapy. So, it's not about a new positions. It's about advocating for how do we ensure that every single Calgarian feels safe in these spaces. And I'm happy to say that this commitment's already been made in writing in terms of a lot of the policy that we've put out to date.
And that's where I was going to head into, is the policy, because you have been releasing policy, and I've been looking at it as I've been looking at all candidates who are putting forward policies. Some are not, some are, and I appreciate that you are actually putting out policy as a voter. I like to be informed when I make my decision.
You're a nerd. I saw one of them printed off on your desk.
Exactly.
Right? So we got like 50 pages already.
So the question is, when the policies are being made, what lenses are you and your team putting those through? Is it just a Calgarian lens? Because there are many different parts of your policies that talk about women, that talk about arts and culture, that talks about the 2S LGBTQ plus community. And it seems like you're ensuring that everyone feels welcomed in your campaign. Why is that important?
Well, the reason I'm in this race at this point in time is growth. So over the last 4 years, we had about 300,000 brand new Calgarians arrive to the city. Many of them, just like my father, arriving here as a refugee, immigrant, newcomer. And really, that's the lens that I look to the city, where my dad had a chance to be able to build a great life for himself, but more than anything else, he would tell you that he was here to build the city, right? So I want us to continue to be a welcoming city. And then if we just look at that growth into the future, over the next decade, we could be a city of 3 million people, overtaking Montreal. And I'll step aside and say that this isn't a goal number for me. Danielle Smith our premier is on the record stating she wants Alberta to be a province of 10 million people by 2050. About half of that would be in the Calgary area. So again, before people roast me about these numbers not being realistic for a city, these numbers have been decided for us. The question is, are we going to be prepared? Are we going to continue to allow are we going to continue to allow every Calgarian to live a great life here? But are we going to be practical? Are we going to service the safety, the infrastructure, the affordability that all of us here need here and now? But the critical point here is that this is a huge challenge, right? It's a huge challenge, but the only way that we can meet the moment and serve the opportunity is if we have the best skills and contributions of every single Calgarian, right? It needs to be all hands on deck for us to tackle this issue, which is why we need every single community to be able to step forward and offer their skills, their advice. Same thing for some of the newcomer policy that we've put out, advocating for quicker skills accreditation, right? I do not want somebody sweeping the floor if they're trained as a doctor, right? So, for example, that's just another example. Like, we want absolutely everybody to be able to contribute if we are going to be able to meet the moment. And I see it similarly to many of these groups that have been marginalized, that haven't had the same access to economic opportunity. The only way that all of us are well served is if we allow our neighbors to contribute and help, and also pay their fair share in taxes, contribute to society, right? It's not about a hand out, it's a hand up. It's allowing them to be able to contribute so that they are, at the end of the day, I think even the most steely-eyed fiscal conservative can recognize they want every single Calgarian to be able to contribute so that the load on all of us is lesser.
So one last area I want to talk about before we turn to this upcoming week and the Calgary Pride Festival, and that is, if you are elected mayor, again, let's go through the journey. When you are elected mayor, on October 20th, you will be the first openly queer man to be elected mayor of the city of Calgary. Does that weigh on you?
I think Calgary's story is such that we're trailblazers, right? Like, for me, one of the first in my family to be able to finish high school, to finish university, go on to be elected as one of the youngest city councilors. You know, we look at previous mayors, each and every one of them have broken those barriers in different ways, right? So I think it's just it's a continuation. It's not about me. It's a continuation, and it's an expression of how incredible Calgarians are, the leadership that we choose, right? So I'm not going to pick and choose one specific element of my biography or the prior biographies of the mayors who, if I am elected, came before me. I am going to say that, you know, this is a city where you're judged on, like, stories like mine are not the exception in a place like Calgary. They're very much the rule. Being there and then in that moment, if I am elected, all it does is make me so excited for the person who comes after me, right?
You're not going to go on the journey with me if I get elected, when I get elected. So when I get reelected, second term, come on, Jeromy.
One of my first political advice is don't deal with hypotheticals, right? Just work the problem, get up.
But that's what journalists do. That's what media operations do. Is all hypothetical questions.
No, but I think the most amazing thing is it tells something more about Calgarians than it tells about me, and a lot of folks can relate to this. If many of us, especially growing up as kids in immigrant households, right? There's that. It's really drilled into a lot of us and can be really tough. It was tough on my brother, my sister, and I, but it was this idea that, all right, you've made it. You have an obligation to lower down the ladder for the people who come after you, right? A lot of, especially second generation Canadians, Calgarians, really feel the pressure in terms of that. So, you know, I try not to be so hard on myself. My grandmother would probably disagree in terms of you could always work a little bit harder. You could always do a little bit more. Don't just be good for something. But again, I really think it's that continuation of Calgary's story. Like, for the last 100+ years, we have been a place where anybody and everybody can come, succeed, prosper, offer something of value to their family, but in so doing, help build up the city. So that's how I would view that milestone.
To get a little bit more personal on this last area, growing up, you said it was a challenge to identify of who you are as a queer man. How was your relationship with your family during that sort of self-discovery years, and has it gotten better where you're able to have a conversation with your siblings, your family members about who you authentically are? Or because there's a lot of Calgarians who will be at the Pride Parade who are going through that struggle right now, who, like myself, when I came out to my parents, it was a traumatic experience. There's many newspaper articles about my coming out that you can go read in Ontario, and we can talk about that off the record. But for yourself and for those Calgarians who are listening who might have had trouble like you did to self-discover who they were, does it get better?
It's hard for me to transpose what my experience is onto what somebody else out there is experiencing, right? There might be some commonalities, but it's hard for me to make just generalized statements about that. But what I will say though is
your family supports you.
It was challenging, right? And I think it was challenging for a lot of folks, especially my own personal journey growing up in a pretty conservative Catholic household. But what I can say though is that my family, my friends, partner, everybody I've known in my life have stepped up in a big way for me to be able to contribute. And, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like I attended at least 6 or 7 different schools by the time I was done high school, right? So I'm not trying to gloss over that there's going to be a little bit rocky, but things are going to work out, right? It can be really fucking shitty, man, right? Like let's
call a spade a spade.
Let's
and
be direct,
and
right?
if we're going to be direct,
yeah.
When I came out, my father burnt my house down with me in it.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm not here to say it's nice rosies that they make it out on the Disney Channel where when you come out your mom cries in front of you and says we accept you. Things do get tough, and maybe we're from a different generation. I hate to say that I feel so old saying that right now, from a different generation, but some stories are different than others, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the takeaway is for the experiences like somebody like you, somebody like me may have had, our obligation is to make it just a little bit better for the person who comes after us, right? The person out there right now. And I think that's why conversations like this are important. And you can't sugarcoat it, but I think what I came to realize is that in my case, the friends, the family, the support emerged, right? And I think that there's still an element of stigma out there, right? Because, it involves incredibly deep and difficult mental health challenges, involves counseling, right? There's conversations like this where it feels like, especially at the political and elected level, candidates like us are not willing to have those conversations. But even if it's disqualifying in the eyes of some individuals out there, I'm more than willing to have those conversations, because I think it's so crucial for those who may be listening, right? Who might be on the sidelines.
Well, I hope that one 10-year-old kid who might be listening to this in 2 years, or that 18-year-old kid who says, I'm never going to make it in politics, sees you and says, if Jeromy can do it, I can do it.
Oh God, if I can do it, a lot of people can do it.
So I want to talk about the upcoming event, and that is Calgary Pride. What are you hoping to hear from Calgarians as you attend this year's Pride and the parade?
I'm just looking forward to the conversation, right? Like I love meeting people where they're at. I'll be participating in, up until recently, I was a board director with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, so I'll be part of their contingent.
Can I ask a very off the cuff question here?
Yeah, please.
Have you joined the barbershop quartet that Ken Lima has done? Because I just want to
heebie-jeebies.
Yes,
no.
I just want to
no.
see you up there at Pride this year singing with the heebie-jeebies.
No, Ken is a great friend and a mentor of mine, but no, I do not have the singing chops. I do dance though. I do Viennese waltz and Hungarian politash, but no, it does not extend to singing. Although every year at the Christmas concert at the Bella, the last 2 times I've been there, former Mayor Nenshi has taken the stage, and he's like the very reluctant 5th band member, which is always very, very amusing and entertaining.
But back to the original question before I interrupted, I apologize, but You're hoping to hear from Calgarians of all walks of life, but you're going to be at this year's Calgary Pride. Are you hoping to hear from stories that will help you better serve them as the next Calgary mayor?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's reaching out to that community. It's reaching out to all communities. And that's really been the, I would say that the real pleasure over the last 6 months is helping build out this platform, listen, learn from Calgarians about the challenges, opportunities they're facing, meeting people where they're at. And it's been so incredibly rewarding over the last half a year to have so many Calgarians join our campaign team, to offer their advice, their counsel, support from a lot of unlikely places compared to say running the last 4 years. But I'm never the smartest person in the room, and I know a lot of folks say that that's probably a bad thing for politicians to say, but I think it is a bad thing if the politicians are ever the smartest people in the room. So I'll be out there to listen, learn, happy to answer questions. There's nothing.
Oh, you've answered a lot of my
questions. Honestly, there's a lot of folks who are curious, right? And I think I'm happy to tackle those questions, those answers. I'm happy to engage in good faith, but let's make sure that we're engaging in good faith, right? And that's my pledge to show up for this community, show up for every community in Calgary, to make sure that all of us feel welcome, that this is a place where you can succeed, you can thrive, no matter where you came from, no matter who you love. And there shouldn't be any limits on what you can do, who you can be in the city. And that's really what I think showing up and being present there, as well as present for the community more generally, means for me as a candidate for mayor.
So I know I'm about to run out of time, but I have to ask you a few political questions about this campaign. Because earlier this month, you came out with a call for Mayor Gondek, Sonia Sharp, Jeff Davison, Brian Thiessen to all release their records of donors ahead of the filing deadline. You have, and you've just put out a map just in the last few days saying, here's where our donors are from every part of this city. Why is it important to be transparent about who your donors are, who's backing you to be the next mayor of Calgary?
Well, yeah, I think in the big picture, Calgarians haven't been seeing themselves reflected in the decisions that City Council and City Hall has been making. And I think transparency helps address a lot of issues. It helps make the decisions and the decision makers more accountable. And I think it's doubly so now when we're operating in this party environment where a ton of money is being funneled into this next municipal election to try to sway the outcome. And I think it's even more severe when you think that for this entire calendar year, individuals like those you named have been privately raising money behind closed doors. They've been actively voting on, say, lucrative city contracts, multi-billion-dollar projects, active development issues. I believe that transparency is so critical to ensuring that we know that our elected officials are serving in the public interest. I'm very proud as well to be able to share the names of our donors, because if you take a look at that map, you take a look at that list, you see folks from across a broad stroke of the political spectrum, from all walks of life, every single corner of the city. And I also think how you campaign tells a lot about how you're going to govern, how you're going to do in the office. And to be clear, these other candidates, they've committed that they'll comply with the legal requirement, which is they'll release fewer than half their donors
every quarter
on October 2nd. And then they'll release all of their donors 6 months after the election. So what does it say that they're committed to transparency, but only after they get the job, right? So again, it's a challenge to all those candidates. Show us your support. And even if you're supporting other candidates, I think the voters out there should be asking their candidate, why don't you trust me with the knowledge of who's funding this campaign? And I think that that's a valid question to ask. And I think it should be there should be significant legal reforms as well. Like in my mind, the perfect world is as donations are received, it's reported to a central reporting agency, and we just take the politics out of it entirely. So again, transparency is really crucial, and we've been seeing a lack of public involvement on some major decisions like that.
My final question, and I promise this is my final question, because I don't want to get the ire of your campaign staff who might be going, why is he saying a final question for the last 10 questions?
I'll just have to come back.
You will have to. After the 20th second, we will have you come back. But Minister of Municipal Affairs, Dan Williams, recently came out and basically fired a shot across the bow in Edmonton and Calgary saying, you need to stay within your lanes. The mayor, the council need to stay in their lanes, and they only need to focus on municipal issues. What was your reaction to what Minister Williams said in, I think it was Rick Bell's column, if I'm not mistaken?
I'd like to see like a collective acknowledgement of collective responsibility on some issues, right? I think for too long we've been looking, say, for example, at public safety or housing as either purely municipal or purely provincial or even federal. I think we're at a moment in time where the voters don't care whose responsibility it is according to the Constitution. They just want all of the elected officials at every level of government to get in the same room and work together. So, for example, on public safety and security, our safety plan advocates for the municipality, the province, and the federal government working very closely, not just on things like sentencing and bail reforms, but also reopening a downtown police station, funding the preventative, proactive services required around mental health and addictions treatment. So, I see it as welcoming everybody leaning in to take collective responsibility and accountability. And that's all. I think the upside for the other levels of government, as well as they get the opportunity to take credit, because we know that when everybody works together across party lines, and this is part of why I've chosen to run as an independent, so that I can work practically with both a conservative premier and a liberal prime minister. But we know when we can be practical, reach across the board to get things done for Calgarians, that's how everyone gets to look good, but that's how we actually solve the root causes of some of these issues, particularly around safety and affordability. So I would welcome the participation of every level of government as mayor to take an interest in Calgary and the issues that Calgarians are facing.
Jeromy, it is a pleasure to sit down with you again. The invitation is always open to have you back on the show to talk about what the issues are. And when you are elected and you want to come back on the show, we'd love to have you back on the show as well when you're mayor.
Yeah, thanks so much. I so appreciate your work.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Alberta Municipal Votes 2025 here on Municipal Affairs. And we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation with Jeromy Farkas and gained some valuable insights into his life and his reason for running in this upcoming 2025 election. Now, your support means the world to us. So if you can, share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we will be back with a brand new episode of Alberta Municipal Votes 2025 here on Municipal Affairs shortly. Till then, everyone.